President Donald Trump visits the U.S.-Mexico border as the government shutdown continues. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. Tension between President Trump and the leaders of the opposition party boiled over on Wednesday over Mr. Trump's demand for a border wall along the southern border with Mexico. Democrats have been united in opposition to funding the wall. Caught in the middle are about 800,000 government workers who will not be paid on Friday, the result of a partial government shutdown. For the latest, we turn now to our White House correspondent, Nathan King, and CGTN's Toby Muse, who is along the border in El Paso, Texas. And Toby, let me start with you. President Trump traveled to the border in Texas today to press that case for his wall. How did that go?
Indeed, he did. He came to the town of McAllen, Texas, which is just across the border from Reynosa in Mexico, a renownedly violent part of Mexico where cartels are fighting for control. I think the president feels like he made all of his points. These are the points he's been going on about for the past recent weeks, where he talks about the dangers coming across the border for the American population. He flew into McAllen and met with Border Patrol agents, and he talked about the reason for wanting to build the wall. He talked about the fact of stopping drugs entering in. He talked about those rising numbers of illegal crossings. And there were some visual elements as well in a very kind of Trump style. There were stacks of cash and drugs and guns in front of him or all around him. These were what federal agents say had been caught along the border area. And again, I think it was a visual element to sort of show the viewers back home of the dangers of this part of the country. But just to put Trump's claims into context, the actual number of illegal crossings is down from 20 years ago. That was about 1.6 million in the year 2000. Last year, it was 400,000 along this border. And also in terms of drugs, if you speak to most drug experts, they say what drug traffickers are really looking for is infrastructure. So most drugs actually come through places like this, the legal crossing. I'm here in El Paso, Texas, because drug traffickers need highways to shift the large amounts of drugs. So you can cross the desert with small amounts of drugs, but the big traffickers are pushing it through the highways. Just to put Trump's statements into context.
All right, let's bring in Nathan. Nathan, by all accounts, the last meeting between the president and the opposition Democratic leaders did not go well, and that's putting it mildly. How much of this is about politics versus what the president's been saying, security?
Yeah, I'm glad you were at that meeting, and I was actually there at the White House on Wednesday when things broke down, and it really was a terrible atmosphere and lots of finger-pointing. You're right, there is a lot of political posturing going on. For example, just take this fact. The US president has not been able to get funding for his wall for the last 2 years, even though the Republicans have been in control of Congress. It's now, when the Democrats are in charge of one of the houses, that he's decided to pick this fight and shut down the government. Why? Well, that plays very well with the base. Nancy Pelosi, the arch enemy of so many Republican supporters and donors. And for the Democrats, they voted for border security and a fence, not necessarily a concrete wall, but a fence in the past as well. They are newly energized. They won 40 seats at the midterms. They have a new progressive wing of the party, which has taken seats, although not everywhere, and they want to say no to one of the key campaign pledges. And that's essentially where we are. Now, where is the way out? Well, in that meeting, Donald Trump stormed out and said bye-bye, apparently, according to him and Nancy Pelosi. Basically, he's sort of refusing to negotiate at the moment, and it seems that he might try and bypass Congress altogether and declare a national emergency where he could use Defense Department funds. Let's take a listen.
I have the absolute right to declare a national emergency. I haven't done it yet. I may do it. If this doesn't work out, probably I will do it. I would almost say definitely.
Absolute right is not something you usually compare with the US presidents, more like Versailles. But he says he's hinting more and more that he's going to do this. It could be tied up in the courts, but it could actually get the government back to work again if he was going to go down that route.
All right, Nathan, let me go back to Toby. Toby, you've been talking with a number of El Paso residents along the border where you are. What have they been telling you?
Well, that's right. I mean, this is a border region, and like every border region in the world, it's a mix of cultures. It brings across the Mexican, it mixes with the American, with the Native American. So these are people who for generations have been going back and forth across this border. In fact, you can see all of the cars behind me. This is rush hour. These are all of the Mexicans who live in Mexico but work in America during the day. So I think people are much calmer about the idea of, compared to what the president is painting. Now, because he's painting this idea of a zone in chaos, crisis, and not one person we've spoken to has used the word crisis or really agreed with that depiction of their zone. Now, many people we've spoken to, in fact, the majority do support the president. That's the majority here in this part, do support the president in wanting to build a wall. But they say, for the same reasons he does, they want to see an end to human trafficking. These are the coyotes who bring across illegal immigrants in the darkness, in the desert. They're charged thousands of dollars to bring these people across. One woman said she wanted to see an end to that human trafficking. Another woman said she wanted to see the end to the drug trafficking that she thought, she said was going on through the deserts at night. And then we spoke with other people who opposed the wall. One woman said that she hoped the walls, the 21st century, would see more bridges rather than walls. But interestingly, one woman who said she did support the president in building a wall, but said crucially she didn't appreciate the way he was handling it. And this could be dangerous for Donald Trump. She said she didn't agree with the government shutdown, saying that she didn't think any family should have food taken out of its mouth in order to prove a political point.
Thanks, Toby, for that. And Nathan, I have one more question for you, and it's something that Toby just talked about. Yeah. The government shutdown. It's been shut down for nearly 3 weeks. What happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. The Democrats have been sort of making a lot of hay out of what Toby just said, which is essentially, look, why are we holding 800,000 federal workers and everyone that depends on them and the contractors hostage to this vigorous debate that we need to have over border security in immigration? And that is what the Democrats have said. Let's reopen the government, but set aside funding for Homeland Security and the border, and let's argue about it for 30 days. That was the offer. Now, Donald Trump basically thinks, and he's probably right over this, that if they reopen the government, there's going to be no agreement and he's not going to get his wall. So that is basically where it is. But when it comes to the perception of who's to blame for this partial government shutdown, Donald Trump went on TV before the shutdown and said, I'll own it. And that is where the finger pointing of the American public is largely. A majority think it's his fault that this is happening. And, you know, it's starting to have an effect. The Fed chair said there were billions of lost revenue already. And Donald Trump has cancelled his visit to Davos and the World Economic Forum. It doesn't look right when there's a government shutdown and people not getting paid when you're rubbing shoulders with billionaires.
Thanks, Nathan. That's CGTN's Nathan King reporting there.